All right. Well, it's the first actually nice enough day for me to go, quote unquote, into the woods. I'm not like truly in the woods. It's not that warm. I'm down by the lake. Once again, my living circumstances are a little wacky. It's 57 degrees out, basically 60. I'm in like just a sweatshirt and jeans. I just got home from work. I walked uh, down the way to the lake. I'm by the shore of the lake. I'm on the side of the lake where all the sun is. I'm sitting on a picnic table, and it's like kind of nice. It's like legitimately kind of nice, and I've got a nice view of the lake. Got a nice gentle breeze on me. I'm digging it. The snow's mostly gone in the places where the sun hits. There's a little bit of like residual snow. It rained. Like generally speaking, this is great weather. No bugs out yet. Just a sweatshirt. If I worked, I could probably, like, if I did some physical labor, I could probably take this thing off and call it a day. Um, Today, I want to talk about making things and my inability to kind of make things. I've got a water with me today. But uh, I find it really hard to complete things, essentially. I start a lot of things, I very rarely complete them. Um, I find it even harder now that I'm like kind of where I have a lot of things that I haven't finished yet. I find it really, really hard to start things. And there's this video by CJ the X, who I'm going to bring up probably literally all the time when I'm making this podcast because I think about his videos a lot. But he has one um, on art sins specifically. So there's like sloth is like you're too afraid to start, and then there's like not wrath, pride. I think pride is you're too proud to finish, and like there's like a whole bunch of them. But in that one, he goes over this one thing where essentially it's like if you have a good idea, like you're not limited on how many good ideas you have. You just have to make things and complete them and finish them so you have room for the next idea to come. And I've definitely noticed that more recently because my like I can't really come up with anything new because it always comes back to something that I haven't finished yet. So like and like I do have to like I have a need to be creative. Like I have that drive to be creative. It's just very hard for me to do it. Um and so with that said, I've got some incomplete work that I'm going to kind of share with you the viewer, and I'll let you discuss in the comments what I should try to finish. I've got my own idea of what I kind of want to finish first, but um we're going to go from newest to oldest. Some have more than others, but like I gotta clear this stuff out before I can make new stuff, and I want to be creative, and that's why I made the podcast originally. Is I hadn't made something creatively in a while, and I was like, I just need to do something simple and put it out there and be done, and like call it a day, or I'm gonna go crazy because like I don't have the time anymore to like play 40 hours of Minecraft and then edit it down into a like 3 minute best of funny moments 8 or whatever. Like I just don't have that much time anymore, and I especially don't have like the drive to edit as I used to. I used to really like editing, and now I think if I was ooh, my pages are going everywhere. If I was made to edit, I think I might cry. So it's one of those things where I have to like kind of refine a joy in editing, or I have to find someone to edit for me. But that's not going to happen because that's expensive. Um, my first one in things of that I've saved that I know of that I remember doing is there's this song. You're gonna get some simulor out of this one, but there's a song called um, "Choke." And it's by the band Cauterize. I've listened to the rest of their work. It's not very good, to my opinion, anyway. Their only good song is "Choke," and we used to listen to a lot, me and my older sister, when we would go over to a family friend's house. The parents would all play cards downstairs, and then all the kids would go upstairs to wherever the GameCube was plugged in, and we play this game called 1080 Avalanche, which is a snowboarding game on the GameCube. I've recently, of course, re-downloaded it, like recently, as in like probably 2 months ago, and I played a bit of it. It was really stuttery on my computer because it's not designed to do it, but um, it was fun. I had a lot of fun playing it again. It's a very okay like snowboarding game, but the song is a very angry, kind of lashing out song about someone who was broken up with, like to some like some like the may that like the lead of the song was broken up with, and they're like they can't get their words out to express their feelings, and they're lashing out. And then at the end of the song, they kind of realize that they're glad that the time that he had spent with his partner was valuable to him, and he's going to take it with him, but and he hopes that they can like be friends, but um he's not mad at them anymore. He's just kind of mad at himself. It's a very nice song. I liked it a lot. It's I sing along to it really loudly sometimes. It's really fun. And first I was like, okay, I could do a music video to this. I had this whole like thing in my head where I made a music video to it where it starts with them, it basically starts with them breaking up, him lashing out, and then the middle of it would be more like him working on himself and realizing where he had gone wrong, and then the ending would be him kind of saying all of the things to the partner and being like, hey, I was wrong, I'm sorry, um, I still want to be friends, I do value the time that we had. And it would be like a whole thing. And then at one point I was like, hold on, this actually, I'm just doing this because this is what I wish I had done when I had had a relationship that had broken up with, and I didn't lash out with anger. I was much more neutral on it, but in my head I was a lot more angry than I showed, and I almost want to manifest a reality in which I actually dealt with it healthily. So I designed sort of a one season anime, like 13 or 12 episodes, where episode one is kind of like slice of lifey romance, but it ends with them breaking up, and that's kind of like the start. That's the like it ends with them breaking up, and then there'd be like three episodes in which it's kind of like the anger arc, and then like three episodes of or 3 to 4 episodes where it'd be like 3 or 4 episodes of like anger and really being kind of shitty, and then 3 or 4 episodes of um kind of working on themselves. Like the main portion of it would be working on himself and like trying to be better. And then the final act would be that him finally, you mustering up the courage basically to finally not ask them out again, but like to apologize for what they did. Um, and then you could take the song and kind of chunk it into the three parts and use it as the different anime openings and like have three of them for a one season, which would be like a lot of work, but I think it'd be really cool, especially to have the last one be only in the last episode when he can finally confront the person, and play it kind of at the end of the episode. So rather than having it as the opening, have it be like an ED almost, but like with the plot. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. But that is going to be a running theme here because think of a lot of, I hear a lot of songs and I like force them into things that I like, and I like ideas that I have. The second one is I actually remember making a like I thought about this so much that I used to draw pictures that would be sent to my aunt, or my great aunt, and we would meet like me and my sister would draw things, and then they would be sent with other stuff to my aunt, my great aunt, and one of them was I made a bookmark like about this almost because I was thinking about it so much. But it's a short story idea. I don't know if I could actually make this into a longer story, but it's called Rogue Earth, or it's about rogue Earths. Rogue Earths being planets that don't have an actual central sun, like they're just kind of free balling it out in space, and they're just kind of going. So they don't have a lot of light, obviously, and they're most likely dead planets. But in my head, I was like, okay, NASA finds a planet that's going to be going close enough that we can hitch a ride. They send a crew to go hitch a ride. Um, it goes well. They get to the planet. Everything's fine. Um, it's a one-way trip, and that's its own type of sad. But it's got a crew of people, and theoretically they have enough supplies to make the planet livable. And they've tested it already. Like they when they scanned the planet or whatever, they know that it's like vaguely livable. So it's like, okay, we'll make it livable. We're sending these people. Maybe they can continue to have kids or whatever, and then like population moment. But like it's like the idea is more. It's a one-way trip, right? It's a one-way trip, and that's sad. And so these 12 or so astronauts, they find this dark planet. They're alone, and they make that work. But that's not the true tragedy of it. The true tragedy, and it's a very philosophical one, where it's more so that the mission goes fine, they touch down, all of the things are working, but them being so alone on this dark, unfamiliar planet doesn't drive them like to hurt each other so much as it drives them to hurt themselves. Where like they what is it? I forgot a bit. The big bit being that um, planet Earth eventually stops sending. Like first off, the signals like they take longer. Like the messages take longer to send because they keep getting further away, and then eventually the messages stop coming after essentially some sort of like good luck message where Earth has fallen into like um, Earth, has fallen into some sort of war, and humanity as we know it is over. And so the last people surviving essentially are these 12 or so people on this planet. And that kind of sparks a sort of philosophical turn, and everything falls apart, and it leaves them with essentially one survivor. And so I'm actually going to read it straight up. I have it written down, read it loser, and on my next 2 pages are just it, because it's a really short story. Um, but essentially, um, this could be like a short video, a short it's not like I don't think that there's enough there that like I could probably think of to bolster it, but I don't think I'm good enough at writing character dialogue to like do it, you know? Like I don't know, I don't think I have the skills necessary to make it work. But with that said, I'm going to read it and then I'll talk about it a little bit. I forget when I wrote this. It must have been, I think it was in high school. Actually, the first draft of it, I know I wrote in middle school because I can, in my head, I can picture the classroom that I wrote it in. So this is vaguely like late, it was like eighth grade freshman year me. So this is like quite a while ago. It was like 8 years ago. Here we go. I woke up to yet another dark day. Not that it came to much of a surprise. There was no days that were bright and sunny because there was no sun. Well, not one close enough to matter. I got out of bed and walked through the empty hallways of the still and silent ship that I called home. I walked to the main cabin and I checked the battery display. 38%. As long as I kept the lights off and used the heat sparingly, I could make that last a while. I already wasn't heating more than half the ship, and I was so used to the dark that I hadn't used the lights in almost a month. At least I thought it was a month. I continued my journey through the main cabin to the airlock. I opened the first door and stepped through before closing it and reached for my suit. I stopped myself. Old habits die hard. I opened the second door and stepped into the cold. It was no more than 10 degrees Celsius, so I hurried down the ladder and made my way toward the vent. As I stepped on the coarse ground, I felt it slowly soften as I neared the vent, and I could feel its warmth in front of me. I felt the air around me become comfortable, and my breaths became less sharp and icy. The only thing preventing me from stumbling into the vent was the sight of the stars in the ground. I don't know how long I stood and looked at the stars in the ground before I tilted my head back to look up at the heavens. Up there, so far away, were a million stars, millions and millions of stars in the eternal night sky I lived under. I looked back at the vent, and my gaze shifted to the 11 stakes on the shore opposite of me. 11 stakes, and the knowledge of the 11 crewmates that lay under them. I laid down on the glassy surface. Oh, no, sorry. I laid down next to the glassy surface of the vent and breathed in. I turned my head to look at the small speck peeking out of the dirt. Life. Life that was too stubborn to die on this place with no sun, only water, and the few nutrients in the soil. Me, too stubborn to die with only this water and a few seeds I had managed to harvest in the 293 days I had been here. I stood up, slowly walked around the vent, checking all of the little plants that had come up, making sure that they were as healthy as they could be. I took extra care checking each of the little vines snaking their way up the stakes on the opposite side of the lake, and eventually found myself back where I had started. I laid down and looked up at the sky again with tired eyes. I closed my eyes and let a few tears escape. I didn't mind for, or who? I closed my eyes and let a few tears escape. I wanted to see the sunrise again. I didn't mind for what sun on what planet, just to see the sun come up and rise into the sky after this long, cold, endless night. Instead, I was the sole member left of a crew that had unwittingly signed up for the last adventures humans would ever make. The sole member of a one-way ticket to a tour of the cosmos, out of reach of a long-gone Earth that will soon be forgotten, out of time to talk to the friends I had to bury. Instead, I was joined by these lights in the sky that made up my endless night. Eventually, I stood up and wiped my tears before making my way back to the ship. I opened the door and stepped into the small bay and closed the door behind me. I opened the inner door and was greeted to a familiar warmth. However, the warmth was just temperature after all. The ship was still empty and silent except for my quiet walking into the kitchen. After all, it was time for breakfast. I could think about things later, and I know that I will because my mind always wanders there. No matter how hard I try to distract myself, I can't help but think about it. I can't help but wonder why I was joined by these bits of dust covering the black sky as I traveled through the cosmos in the blink of an eye, tracing new constellations and watching all the new suns set on my empty ball of rock, waiting for a sun to rise. A billion setting suns on a planet's journey to nowhere. And that's what it's called. That's like the title at the end, you know. But that's it. I think it's very evident that I was kind of young writing this because it's kind of poorly written in a lot of spots. But I think the idea there is really good. I think making it into a more like a lengthier, probably like 8-page thing would do well. I think it would be good. I don't know. I have to. The problem is that I'd have to create characters, and I don't know if I could do that. But like this is, I think, the only vaguely finished thing that I've ever done. But while making, this like bullet point thing for my video or my podcast here, um, I was thinking about it a lot. And I was like, oh, what if I did this? And I was thinking about it a lot. But there's like, I don't know, there's good idea here. There's good ideas here, and there's a lot that's not talked about in one of the other drafts of this because I have 4 of them actually, um, of varying levels of quality. This is the only like actually like vaguely finished one. But in one of them, there's like a romance act part to it where it's clear that the protagonist had some sort of love interest that passed away as well. And in different ones, there's different amounts of people. But like, I think 12 is a good number. But um, trying to figure out some sort of dynamic and figuring out something to do with it would be hard. But I like where it is if I cleaned it up. I think if I made it like, maybe not 8 pages, I think if like it was like a 5-page short little story, I think it'd be good. Like, I don't know. I feel like as it is now, there's not quite enough, and it's a little too cheesy. But if I gave it like a little more, I think it'd be really good. Like maybe start with like newspaper clippings or something. I don't know, like something small. Um, I think there's a lot of little things. Or if I adapted it into some sort of like animation. Not that I can animate. I always say that I'm gonna make like animations or anime, but like I can't draw, so I don't know about that. Ooh, the big one. Wait, did I skip a page? I didn't skip a page. Okay. Um, the biggest one, the most like the one I think the one that I put the most time into is this thing that I've temporarily titled Shifting Sands. And it started it's expanded into like a music video anime book story thing, but it started as a music video set to Take My Breath by The Weekend. Later on, I superimposed it onto My Type by Saint Motel because Take My Breath is about just not what I wanted it to be about, and like it's fine. It's a good song, like 10 out of 10, but it's the what the song is talking about doesn't make sense for the thing that I put it to. And My Type is a very similarly structured song, but it more closely I can fit it more to um, what the video in my head says. I also made a second one, Set to Move by Saint Motel, but that's just because Saint Motel slaps. Um, and I think about this a lot. The overview that I have written on one of my many like 7-page documents that I keep rewriting is the overview is, I'm going to read it. On the edge of molten sand and sheets of ice, a strip of land drenched in twilight is where our story sets sail. Amidst the timekeeping monoliths, airships, and thievery, some lads and lassies just want to eke out a honest living amongst the waves. Pirates. This time, though, what should have been a grab and dashed heist quickly spirals out of hand, and our beloved crew hangs in the middle of forces and plots far bigger than they ever could have imagined. A very boilerplate plot, but I'm not really thinking about the plot right now. I have not thought about the plot like literally at all. It's mostly world building. Um, but let's go through this kind of one at a time here. So first off, Twilight, the part where I say it's drenched in twilight, it's because the planet that this takes place on is on the edge of molten sands of sheet and ice, a strip of land. That's because the setting is a tidally locked planet. If I don't know if you're noticing a theme here. Tidally locked, is that a goose? I just heard a goose honk. Where is it? Holy crap, it's a goose. I can see it. That's so epic. There's two of them. Anyway, so tightly locked planets. Basically, it's they rotate around a star, but they don't spin themselves. So one side is always constant. It's kind of like the moon to Earth, where one side is always facing the sun, and then one side is always facing away from it. So what you have on one side is essentially a just complete molten, obliterated side stripped of everything that cannot sustain anything. And it's just permanently a billion degrees. And then the other side is always facing away. So it's got just always iced, it's always completely frozen over. And then what you would have is in the middle, you have this one, this vertical strip that is essentially the temperate zone of the thing, where the closer you go to the sun side, the more the it's always going to be sunnier out, and then the closer you get to the cold side, the more it becomes more close to dark. But in the middle, it'd be kind of like a permanent twilight sunset, which is first off sick as hell for art design. I love twilight. Like imagine the Sinbad movie, the animated Sinbad movie by DreamWorks. Imagine like that, all of the scenes where they take place that are like at twilight, like that. I want that dreamy quality to it. Um, Secondly, also with that, you get a lot of silliness where, like, um, first off, day night cycles don't exist because it doesn't have a day night cycle. So you have to come up with different ways of telling time and how they would, humans on that sort of planet would adapt and kind of do things. Also, because of the intense heat and the intense cold, you would have very rapid changing weather that is very aggressive as cold fronts and warm fronts, interact in that temperate zone. Um, Lads and lassies used to eke out an honest living. The pirates, I love pirate stories. They're so good. Oh my god! And if anyone thinks, oh wait, pirates in a long strip in the planet, that's like the Grand Line. That's like One Piece. I'll kill you. Oh my god, it's not One Piece. I dislike One Piece a lot. I thought of this long before I ever was introduced to One Piece. I don't even like One Piece. I read 155 chapters. It's not even that good. I dropped it. I could do better. I think I almost want to write this to prove that I can do better. But I'm also not a good writer, so I don't know how that's gonna go. But pirates are really cool. I like them a lot. I think they make really good characters and bring interesting viewpoints. And because it's a crew dynamic, you get this big, crew dynamic, and you can have lots of different viewpoints on different things. Um, um, Funny note, because you can only go on this one strip of land, so to speak. I have this idea that a lot of the boats um, that do a lot that go the whole distance actually have skis on the bottom of them, so they can go over icebergs and stuff that are in the way, and go over like small islands. But they have like skis on the bottom, so they're just gonna like whoosh, go out of the thing. Also, I'm adding airships to the world because they're cool. No other reason. They're just sick as heck, and I think they add a cool dynamic where the airships can kind of be more the ships for the upper class and can be kind of used in that way, as well as adding a bit of value to um, the hot cold dynamic that I got going on. So what I have is I've invented some material, right, that is um, essentially the colder it gets, like as you freeze it, right, it gets lighter. I don't know how that would work on a physicals like a physics level, but that's what I've made. Right, it's a fantasy. I don't care. But essentially, right, you find the ore, cool it, and it gets lighter. So you get this thing where first off, people find it more in they find the actual material closer to um the hot side, because that's where it becomes obviously heavier than air, and it's actually an ore, right? So they have to keep going deeper and deeper into the hot side to find the ore, and then they put it into these airships, and the airships, if they want, they can fly closer to the cold side to get extra lift, and they can carry heavier loads, but they have to go closer to the cold side, so they have to heat themselves up without it brings into all these it brings a lot of logistics into it. um Yeah, so it's a funny lighter than air material. Yeah, that's what I wrote down. Funny lighter than air material. So because the pirates are usually in the normal ships, and the richer like empire type class people are in the airships, um, they often fight. And so the big thing that they do is, first off, for airships fighting the other ones, they kind of just fly over and they drop like bombs. Like that's like the easiest thing they could possibly do, and they can fire down on them with other things. But the pirates and the ships fighting back have actually developed ballistas. Because first off, ballistas are just cool. Just giant crossbows are sick. But having specifically, because I don't care about physics, I think this has been pretty clearly illustrated. But having ballistas, bullets specifically made so that pirates can grab onto them, so to speak, and ride them up to the airships and like let go of them, so the ballista bullet itself hits the the balloon, so to speak, and then they crash through the wall, like they crash through the cabin, the windows and stuff like that. In my head looks really cool, so I'm gonna let it happen. um Obviously they don't always hit. If you miss, you're just like SOL. But um it's a risk that they take, and it's really cool. Because of the time thing, the time telling monoliths. So I have in the lore, essentially, right? In the lore, there was at one point, it's kind of like a big old Caesar moment, or whatever the hell his name was. I don't think it was Caesar. I don't care who it was, to be honest. But essentially, right, at one point, this guy actually, for once, rules the entire strip, like the entire known world, essentially. He owns it. He's the king. He makes this insane, he does it entirely through a navy. He's just like the goat. And he does two things in his time that are finished by his son before his son gets fully overthrown. And then the story actually takes place many years later. But um, the thing that um, the first king actually lives to complete is, firstly, they make a fully connected water route around the entire place, the entire ring. So you can take a ship the entire way. It connects rivers to other things. It goes through mountains. They do the whole thing. It's like the transcontinental railroad. Like, they make a way where you can just go the whole distance in a boat, which is goaded. And he lives to see that, and there's like their crest on it, so like people will see it and be like, "Oh yeah, they did that." And then he started it, but then his son finished it before his son gets overthrown. Is timekeeping monoliths. So essentially, what they do is they take your average airship, and they go from the traditionally agreed upon kind of like where you kind of don't want to go past in the hot zone to about where you want to stop in the cold zone. And they essentially time that with some sort of timekeeping method, whether it be some little device or whatnot. But they track that time, and they go, okay, that is our 1 unit of time. And then they're like, okay, that is our like 1 unit. And then I forget exactly how I wrote it. I could bring it up, but I'm not going to. But essentially, like, they come up with this unit of time, and they call it. They eventually, when they build the towers, it's these giant telescoping kind of towers. And if it's at its lowest point, that means it's at 0. And then when it gets to its top point, which is 10, because humans have 10 fingers and they like to divide things by 10. When it gets to the topmost step, there are 10 steps in it. So essentially, you have this ground platform where it hasn't telescoped out at all, and then it kind of telescopes up smaller and smaller, and you've got these 10 steps to it. And so you have an up step, and you've got your down steps. So you've got and I don't know how they would signal if it's going up or down. I guess you just have to be paying attention. But you basically have, it's almost an hour. It's like, I think it's the way that I had it done was, it was like, I think it was about it was like almost 1.5 hours. But you have these steps that kind of, they go up and then they go down. And because humans are, vaguely smart, and they kind of, without um what's it called, like, usually on default setting, humans will not do monophasic sleep. They'll do kind of two settings, where they'll sleep for a bit, for like a good chunk, and then they'll be awake for a little bit, and then they'll sleep another smaller chunk. So what the time on this is basically, you are typically awake during one of them, either the up steps or the down steps, and then you're sleeping for the other one, or most of the other one. But because it's always like day night, like, you can, like, switching over isn't terrible. Um, but those are the time monoliths, and then each kind of, and there's, I think it was 18 of them. I figured it out. I did like the math for it, whereas like if you were at sea level, how far could you see? Like at any point on the planet, like on the strip, you can always telescope and be able to see one of them. And like I figured out the number based on the size of the planet. So there's that many timekeeping towers, and so like then they can just telescope and be like, oh yes, that's the time. And that's like how they keep track of time. Like that's the most, and it's like this very fancy system. And so that's how people tell time. It's essentially just clock towers, but like stupidly large. Um, And then, oh, another little tidbit about the towers is that so each tower essentially is like the capital of what is essentially its kind of state, because the king, blah, 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 king happens. And then what happens is the navy kind of revolts against the new king or the son of the old king, and they become pirate groups, like pirate crews. And then now it's kind of like each city state does its own thing with a timekeeping monolith in the center, and so you've got kind of two groups in each city, the timekeeping people who are kind of like left to keep that running, and then the government of the immediate like surrounding area. So you've got like two like kind of groups in each city, which can add some conflict. And then oh, and then the pirates, as like a full organization, the pirates, whenever they come to port, they will always spend some time at the orphanage and donate money because they are smart and they figured out that they can, first off, hire people from, if they just look cool as shit and they give money to the orphanages, they can kind of guarantee that those kids will grow up and want to be pirates. It also gives a place for older pirates who have survived long to retire to take care of the kids. And then also it like it's just kind of like a perfect little system that kind of like feeds the pirates forever, and it makes also the like populace's uh, view on pirates higher because they're doing the good thing with the orphanage. I also have this fake magic system that I thought would be cool, where you have it would be like blood alchemy, but I didn't actually get very far into it. It had to do with blood types and like water temperatures. It was like a whole thing, but I don't think it's very good for what it is, or for the story. And then the plot, I don't really have one. Just like something about, I don't know, government. It goes wild. Just like, and then it some sort of thing that is supposed to go well. You know, turns out they get like framed or something, and then they have to go on this big chase around the entire like thing, and you get to sightsee the whole like planet essentially. That'd be the goal, and then you like once it's done, and that's that. I also don't have like any characters written. The only ones I did have written were just that the captain is first off a woman because fuck it, dude. Women in pirate captain clothes, hot as fuck. Like I don't know, like what do you want from me? And then they're like calm, which is like kind of flipped from usually the hot-headed captain of pirate stuff. So like they are calm, and then the medic, the main medic of the group, would first off be the really bad at hand-to-hand combat, unlike the captain, who is really good at hand-to-hand combat. But the uh, like the medic is essentially just cracked as heck with like like a pistol, but like only snipes with it. But also they are the more hot-headed one, and then they'd be a couple, and they're I don't know. In my head, they're both girls because I think it's funny to just be inclusive off rip, and then write those characters to be good characters. But and then also have I don't know, just have like a very diverse crew, because I think having like an all male crew would be like almost too stifling in viewpoints, and then having the main two be traditionally characters that are left out of pirate stories would be fun, especially because it's a fantasy planet and I can do what I want. So like doing that, and then also I think it'd be really funny to have um, if I were to go down the blood alchemy route, to have the blood alchemist guy rather than being like the scientist type, to be just like this aggressively buff dude who acts as like a second medic in times of need. So kind of like, oh, actually kind of like in Atlantis, what's his name? I want to say Honey, but that's not right. Sweets. Is it Sweets? I don't know. but the like the Atlantis medic, like that kind of like jacked, but like the medic, but like he's the blood alchemist, so he's like the scientist of the group. I think that'd be funny. Now that I think about it, actually, I think I would love to just make the Atlantis movie again, but with pirates and on my own fictional world. I really like the Atlantis Disney movie. It's really good. Um, oh, and then that's kind of all the stuff that I kind of do for free writing, besides like the video essay ideas. So I've obviously got my 5 out of 10 video, which I've talked about before, where rating things is kind of hard, but also not, and it shouldn't be this complicated. And it cribs a little bit from CJ the X, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it. I think I mentioned him by name. But the 5 out of 10 video is something that I could probably make, and I kind of do want to make in the future very soon. I started one about Fool Knight, the manga, but I didn't get very far, and also the manga updates, like the chapter updates for it, are really behind, and I don't think I could necessarily do a good enough. Um, I just want to talk about it. I think it's just a really interesting manga with very interesting art, and I want to talk about it, but I don't think I have enough to say about it for an actual video. I've got the big one about the what is it, Yumakai Mary, um, Darling in the Franxx, and Infinite Stratos, but that one's been kind of growing out of hand. And I think if I take out the Yumakai Mary part, I can actually make a better point. And then I'll just have to make a different one about Yumakai Mary. That, or I have to like think harder and actually make a good video. And then I've got one about Dragon Hunters, which is just like a weird movie that I want to talk about as well. It's just like a really weird niche movie that only I think my sisters and I know of. That we watched, and it was really weird, and it's based off like this French animated show or something, and it's really weird, and it has a lot of really cool animation in it in some parts, but it's really bad, and I don't know. I think it's really good. I've got one. It's kind of an isekai rambly one where it just talks about how bad isekai have been and how good Gregor the Overlander is. But you already know how good Gregor the Overlander is, so like it's fine. Um, but that one has a couple good points. It does ramble pretty hard. I've got one that I want to do about the Big O that kind of uses the themes of the Big O to talk about the Big O, but like in a subtle way. Not a really subtle way, but like as a, like to make the concept of the video where because the Big O kind of goes in circles a little bit. That's not a spoiler, I promise. Like because it goes in circles to kind of have the video go in circles, I think would be fun. Kind of like that one folding ideas video by Dan to do the Vsauce video in the style of Vsauce. I think it's a fun idea. And then I've got one about Legend of Korra where it's basically just the idea of Legend of Korra being about legacy and um, just kind of that, and just talking about how each season kind of goes over the different parts of legacy. Um, and then I thought of one while I was writing this. I was like, I would love to make a video about Arya the Scarlet Ammo, which is easily like maybe the single worst anime of all time, but also kind of maybe the best because while it's bad and the protagonist is a guy that's only the world's best spy when he's hard, and they show that visually in a really funny way where it shows like his blood level rising on this. It's really funny. And then his sidekick is the like granddaughter of Sherlock Holmes, and then one of the main baddies is like one of their main antagonists is like the granddaughter of like Moorcroft or whatever then their name is. I don't care enough about Sherlock Holmes, and like that's really stupid by itself. But then making the actual villain of the entire series Dracula, and like going down that route pretty good. But then when Dracula transforms, it's not into a vampire, it's actually into a werewolf, is almost the best twist of all time. And so like it's like so bad but like also so good. Like I could talk about it forever. I might watch party it with some friends and then like see what I can do with that. But I've talked about all of these before, so I don't want to like go too deep into any of them. Um, Dinner time tonight. I don't know. I don't know what dinner time tonight's gonna be. I need a drink of water. I've been rambling. One second. I'll finish this one in a second. I promise. Yo, it's the ducks. The ducks are like right there. That's epic. But what's it called? I think last night I had meatloaf, and I think it touched like a piece of bread somewhere along the line because I feel like garbage today, and I'm really upset about it because I really like meatloaf, and I'm gonna continue to eat the meatloaf even if it kills me. But I think when my boyfriend was making their dinner, a little bit of gluten got over. Because also my leg hurt today, and that's usually a clear sign that it was a gluten thing. Not exciting. Not excited about that. But tonight's dinner, I don't know. I kind of want to use the chicken that we've got because we got chicken. Well, actually, we might do tacos tonight. Tacos might be a good one for tonight. But I kind of want to do something with the chicken that's fun. I want to do like a rosemary chicken. I also really want to do chicken piccata again, but my partner does not like chicken piccata, so it's hard to do. But also, it's so good. Like chicken piccata with the old Ben's or whatever, wild rice. But like when I make it, I use chicken broth instead of water, and then I add a little bit of cooking white wine and a lot of butter. Like that rice with chicken piccata and like triple the sauce of chicken piccata. Oh my God, is it good? Oh my God. Oh, I'm so hungry now. I might go eat some meatloaf and then cry about it probably. Um, but I think that's my plan for dinner is like, if I can convince my boyfriend to do chicken piccata, that'd be dope, but I doubt it's going to happen. It's probably going to be tacos. And I think I'm going to go eat meatloaf right now. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's all I got. 40 minutes. Jesus Christ. I've been out here this long. Oh my God.